acid reflux or heartburn is an extremely prevalent condition across the world. If you get full very easily and become bloated very easily, and you find yourself constantly burping after meals, and you burp in between meals and after snacks, and just constantly like that, even some in more extreme cases, after when you're full, you're trying not to spit up sometimes when you're burping, and you find that food just seems to sit in your stomach for hours and just take forever to digest. You stay full for a long time and it's uncomfortable. Then you are certainly, without a shadow of a doubt, dealing with this bothersome problem of acid reflux. Now, very unfortunately, regular doctors are absolutely clueless about this condition. Traditional doctors, I should say, and the traditional health education is, to my knowledge, unless somebody changed the system a certain number of years ago, maybe a decade ago, hopefully, but I don't think so. We have no idea really what's going on. And this is a matter of something that the naturopaths and the GI specialists know about, that you have to turn to. So only people in the specialized medical areas really know what causes this and what's actually going on. The traditional doctors still believe that the problem is the overproduction of stomach acid, and will prescribe you antacids to treat the symptoms, which are exactly the opposite of what you want. The very problem that you're struggling with, it's promoting it and making it worse. So this is a major misconception and mistake, because the truth is there is no such thing as common high stomach acid reflux phenomenon. That is not a real illness. The only thing, a disease or illness, that truly causes an overproduction of stomach acid is the extremely rare Zollinger-Ellison disease. But this only occurs in 3 in 1 million people, and only if you have tumors inside of you. It's also much less likely to develop if you don't have tumors. Or I should say, it's the least likely thing to develop when you have tumors, right? So what the problem is really, when you have this problem of bloating and burping and it's uncomfortable acid reflux, that excessive burping you're experiencing is, of course, coming from the lack of stomach acid. Think about it. When you get older and different things happen to your body, it changes, or it gets, you go through DNA damage and stuff. The body gets worse over time. It struggles to produce things. It struggles to see, to hear, to produce the enzymes, all the stuff that it makes for itself to manage and produce energy start to degrade, right? So, and, stomach acid is just another one of those things. The medical term is hypochlorhydria, and in severe cases, it's achlorhydria, where there is virtually or nearly no acid production going on at all. And what specialists have discovered is that when the stomach acid doesn't produce enough, or rather, when the stomach doesn't produce enough acid to digest food, the esophageal sphincter at the bottom of the throat, which is responsible for keeping the barrier between the throat and the stomach closed, that becomes loose. So this is the reason why we've misunderstood the minor spitting up of food, or in some cases acid, for high acid levels. And what you'll probably notice is a lot of the time, if there's a little bit of spitting up, it's more so just small amounts of food. It's not even acid. So in North America, statistically, the prevalence is mostly tied to age, but other causes are also at play. In the elderly, the studies show that 30% of adults over 60 have significant acid decline. And by age 85, that number can reach to 80%. I want to add here, though, that so some people might claim that you have to strengthen the esophageal sphincter, but it's not so much strengthening the muscle. It's really that muscle isn't responding or reacting to your system. And if you had enough acid, it would work perfectly. You would have a strong closed sphincter, and you wouldn't be burping as much and all that. So this is a nervous system issue. This is a vagus nerve problem. It's usually these kinds of stomach issues are not really stomach problems. They're nervous system problems. So anyway, as I was saying, it's no surprise that stomach acid is just another one of those things that declines with age, just like sight and hearing and muscle mass. But for the rest of the population, excluding seniors, functional medicine specialists estimate that the estimate could easily be as high as 21% if analysts were to include all the undiagnosed cases out there. So that amounts to tens of millions of people in just America alone. So here are the most common causes of acid reflux and low stomach acid, from most common to least common, along with the subsequent remedies. The most profound overlook that even some of the GI specialists and holistic healers aren't aware of are the ethers of the body. And this is, of course, something that you learn about in ancient Vedanta, or Vedism, and Hinduism too, and yogic science. They are the fundamental to our health and vitality. This is the Qi in Qigong, the prana in Hinduism, the mercury or the fifth element in Western occultism. This is the primordial life force behind all of creation. Nothing can be created or sustained without it. Ancient Chinese medicine, as well as all the other ancient civilizations of the Golden Age, had known about the ethers of the body for centuries. This is why Chinese medicine practices look very strange and questionable to modern doctors, because the focus is completely on addressing the causes and the origin of the illness, which is, as a matter of fact, the subtle body, the etheric body, and it's not completely physical, right? This is the fourth dimension we're dealing with here, the dimension of energy. I can tell you from my own personal observation that the main reason people, especially men, if you notice, get bloated and burp a lot is because of the mismanagement of vital energy. And what do the specialists say? They say that low stomach acid is due to a problem with the vagus nerve, the nervous system. That's right. But what keeps these systems functioning properly? What keeps the endocrine system functioning well, the nervous system, the kidneys, the adrenal glands, all the things, pancreas, pineal gland, pituitary gland, all that? This is the ethers of the body. And yogic science is very explicit about where these ethers are, what they're called, the different kinds. There are 5 primary ethers or pranas in the body. There are even 8 subcategories of just one type of prana. And women have a couple more that are distinct for childbirth. This is a very specific thing. It's not vague. It's not a vague hoo-ha spiritual matter. Rudolf Steiner talked about 4 ethers, and Hinduism teaches that there are 5 ethers or pranas, all of which manage different systems of the body. Some are upward moving energy, some deal with downward moving energy, and so on. But without going into too much detail, this is the crucial missing link in modern medicine. So aside from the obvious but less substantial causes of the problem, like being obese or having a poor diet, or getting older, truly, it's not so much the diet, even though people's diets aren't great. They say get off acidic foods. No, you need more acid, so stay on the acid foods. You're getting older. Well, when you get older, what have people been doing their whole lives, right? The main reason people have this problem is because of oxidative stress, right? And the most immediate and noticeable cause is when you feel stressed in the moment, like when you're nervous, This is one, I'm giving you some examples here. This significantly reduces your body's ability to digest and assimilate food because the rest and digest system is shutting off in order to let the fight or flight response take over. And even a very slight amount of nervousness, you'll notice, can ruin your digestion. If you have this condition, you see that, oh, just being a little bit anxious is really making the digestion bad. But if we take this a step further, when we find ourselves going through, because most people aren't stressed all the time, constantly, we just go through phases or periods in our life. But there are people who go through extended periods in their life where they're constantly stressed every day, either from nervousness or intense anger. Like when we're struggling through a relationship conflict and we're constantly fighting with our partner or ex-partner, or we're being narcissistically abused by someone on a daily basis, or we're being bullied every day in school when we're younger in school, right? Our nervous system can become chronically damaged by these traumas. So even when that conflicting phase of our life passes, oftentimes our bodies is still recovering, but we don't notice this. So when your body's chronically stressed, now all of a sudden your essential vitamins and minerals like magnesium and potassium, zinc, B vitamins like B1, B5, B12 are constantly being depleted. And we just find that all of a sudden, well, not to mention vitamin C, or calcium ascorbate. And so all of a sudden food isn't going down as well anymore, and it just sits there and you feel full all the time. But here is another really major and common thing we do on a regular basis that causes this oxidative stress, and that is sex and masturbation. These are by far the most likely and substantial causes of low stomach acid. Doctors say that sex and masturbation is healthy, it relieves stress, but this is just the short-sighted. This is the fraction of a truth. Because even modern scientists who specialize in longevity research, for example, they understand now that the act of having sex, specifically with the orgasm, creates oxidative stress. Part of the reason why the orgasm produces stress is because the body is signaling to itself that life's good and the genes are being spread, so there's no need to activate survival enzymes and things like that. So it becomes complacent. The body becomes complacent. First, the process of an orgasm is just plain stressful on your body, but also it's signaling to itself that the going is good, so there's no need to survive. There's no need to activate the enzymes to lengthen the telomeres, things like that, right? When there's a need to survive, then the body becomes healthier, the immune system builds, it boosts, and so on. So the body becomes complacent when it's enjoying life and indulging in these kinds of pleasures and eating frequently, right? That's also another thing that makes it go complacent instead of starving itself, which again creates enzymes for survival. So everyone, you gotta stop masturbating and having sex all the time. This is one of the major causes of hypochlorhydria that they won't tell you because nobody knows about this. At the very least, manage how often you have the orgasm. Try to keep that down to like once a week at the most, ideally. And this is just for your ordinary health, or health for the ordinary sensual person. This is not, this doesn't even apply to spiritual people who are renouncing everything and taking up chastity and all that. But this is acceptable for your body, if you want to live, the ordinary sensual life. If you're a student of the Dharma or spirituality, then of course you'll work towards reducing this activity more and more until you stop altogether. So let's get into stress a little bit more. Lots of people find that magnesium has a substantial effect on their digestive system. Some people can just take 100 or a couple hundred milligrams of magnesium when they're experiencing symptoms, and then they're fine. So sometimes people will prescribe that, like health, like nutritionists will suggest magnesium, and a lot of people find that it does make their heartburn go away. So if you can just take magnesium after every meal, that would be great, because then you don't have to take 5 or 6 or 8 capsules of betaine hydrochloride, which is acid in itself, just to compensate and digest your meals. And by taking 100 or so for 3 meals, that's your daily amount of magnesium. And there are many types of magnesium. There's magnesium bisglycinate. That's a very good multifunctioning magnesium. It also helps with digestion, but magnesium malate is particularly helpful in metabolizing carbohydrates and proteins. So high quality magnesium is worth your money. Now let's cover the other causes of low acid. Another major thing that I learned recently is canned food. This was explained to me in meditation. So it really is a major contributor to this. It will just promote that low acid. It will block something about many canned drinks and canned food. Something about it, the BPAs, I guess, are promoting low acid or blocking acid production. And of course, I haven't, because I received this as an insight. I don't know if there's any scientific proof about this. So you'll have to do your own research and investigate yourself in meditation, because you may not be able to just trust me. I mean, you may not want to do that. That's all I know, because I had never heard about that or read about it anywhere. I received it as an insight. So eating before going to sleep is a pretty bothersome, uncomfortable thing to do, right? The unsuspecting mistake that we often find ourselves making is eating a big meal quickly and not giving ourselves the time to feel the sensation of being full. And then, an hour or an hour and a half later, it hits us and we feel completely stuffed. As I said, it's really bloated, burping. But because that's when it's really starting to work on your food there, on your meal. So even a small meal is enough to cause a lot of discomfort if you don't give yourself enough time to digest it before taking a nap or going to bed, right? All the processes of the body slow down and rest during sleep, and your digestive system is no exception. So give yourself enough time, even like 3 hours or so to digest that meal before you go to sleep. A lot of doctors say you shouldn't eat late, and actually the body gets tired as the day progresses. So in fact, this does have an impact on our digestion. Some people, like myself, have very good digestion in the morning, and then it just progressively gets worse as the day goes by. And then by the evening, it's quite bad. You can't eat very much. So the metabolism is faster, and there's processes that are functioning better in the morning, which is why someone with acid problems would want to eat less and less as the day progresses, to keep things light in the evening. So doing this will prevent the reflux entirely if you just eat less and you eat, you give yourself enough time to digest. Another major cause, huge contributor, is poor sleep. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that many functions of the body, like the cardiovascular system and the immune system and the digestive system, become compromised when you don't sleep properly. And from my years of experience with insomnia, I always knew when my days of digestion were going to be a struggle, when I was going to have bad digestion that day, if I were to eat normally. So keep observing how your body responds to meals and see whether or not there's any improvement after a full night's rest. something like 7 or 8 hours. And for me, I used to have problems. If I had less than 7 hours, I'd have problems. Nowadays, it's not as bad. I can get by with 5.5, 6 hours, and usually no problem. Now, what about diet? The kinds of foods we eat can promote acid reflux to some extent, but I'm not a huge I don't have a huge concern about this, because when you have a very major hypochlorhydria, it doesn't matter what you eat. You always have hypochlorhydria. You just can't digest anything. So it doesn't make a difference. Many doctors say to avoid spicy or deep fried processed foods and caffeine, alcohol, and smoking. I would just recommend the last three. Those are the major ones: caffeine, alcohol, and smoking. Because caffeine speeds up your nervous system. It excites your nervous system, and too much of that will definitely make your digestion pretty bad. Alcohol can have some problems, and then smoking as well. It's a irritant. Spicy foods should actually be good, because they stimulate digestion. They wake up your system, but not in a bad way like caffeine. They wake up not your nervous system, but your digestive system. Yeah, so not the sympathetic, but the parasympathetic. So aside from the types of food alone, what has a much bigger impact on digestion is food combining and how much we eat per meal. It wasn't very long ago when nutritionists hypothesized that eating carbs and protein foods together could be counterproductive to the system, because this is because the fats and the proteins take longer to digest and require different enzymes than carbohydrates. So to combine all three of these foods at once could be challenging for the stomach. So with this consideration, the solution would be to eat fats and protein together, as they digest very well as a pair, and then to eat carbs separately if you can. And this practice works well with a keto or intermittent fasting diet, since the body needs more carbohydrates in the evening to refuel during sleep. In a similar way, eating and drinking separately also makes a significant difference in your digestion, because when you separate your drinks from your food, all of a sudden you're no longer diluting your stomach anymore. So that makes a big difference, because you don't need to, you're not eating when you're drinking. Right? When you're eating, you want to get the food. You don't need the drink per se. You can wait. You can separate these things. If your body can stay healthy with less food, as I said, eat smaller meals. That's an easy fix. And caffeine promotes acid reflux. And our body becomes stressed. There's adrenaline and cortisol when we drink coffee or any kind of caffeine. So that's not very good. When you're overweight, having a large amount of fat on your belly can push the belly up and the stomach up slightly and promote the opening of the esophageal sphincter and basically squish that area, and that causes more reflux. So these are some other side causes. There's also SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. SIBO tends to come from eating a lot of sugar on a regular basis or being constipated frequently for weeks or months. This makes the stomach turn to its bacterial stores to break down food through fermentation. And fermentation, when the food's sitting in your stomach or your bowels for a long period of time, it ferments, and that is what's creating the bloating. That creates enormous bloating and gas. Then there's H. pylori. H. pylori is surprisingly common bacteria that's responsible for some cases of low stomach acid. And this bacteria produces an enzyme called urease, which neutralizes stomach acid. So if you address the aforementioned causes of acid reflux, and find that you're still having problems, then it could be that you have a bacterial infection from H. pylori or a yeast infection like Candida. So if you suspect this, I suggest that you search online for a health organization that provides bacterial and yeast infection stool test services, since many doctors don't understand acid reflux to be low stomach acid and will only suggest the kinds of testing that is very intrusive and difficult, like the capsule endoscopy, which is a camera in your system down your GI tract. And then they're going to prescribe anti-acid pills, which is completely opposite to what you need. It'll only make the problem much worse, especially in the long run. You also develop things like pneumonia, osteoporosis, B12 deficiency, and malnutrition, and less acid. So it makes the pharmaceutical industry a lot of money too. These antacids like Tums and Rolaids and Nexium, Prevacid, Prilosec, Zegerid, Gaviscon, and Purple Pill have the leading sales, and yet they really don't work. They just feel kind of nice and foamy and cooling for a few minutes, but really it's not doing anything. Hypothyroidism. In some cases, a suppressed immune system from hypothyroidism can create an alkaline environment in the body, and this results in low stomach acid. But now that we've covered the causes, here are some immediate remedies. There's apple cider vinegar. Any acid promotes any acid promotes digestion, basically, but apple cider vinegar is pretty much the only one that's coming from a food that you'll really feel a difference with, that's strong enough to do anything. So that's what's needed because of its strength. And there are many ways you can consume apple cider vinegar, which are beyond the scope of this presentation. But for digestion, it's recommended to drink between 1 teaspoon and a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar diluted in water with a 1:5 or 1:10 dilution ratio. You'll need a lot more than that if you have pretty substantial low acid. Even like a 1:3 ratio, it's sour, but it's gonna work better if you do that. Some say you should take this before, but this can cause quite an upset to your stomach, so it's best to, take it when you need it, which is during your meal, as you're digesting your meal, or immediately after. And this can be done with every meal. Obviously, never consume dietary acids like apple cider vinegar or lemon juice, or especially betaine hydrochloride on an empty stomach, because they are powerful, really powerful. They're only designed to be consumed with food. Betaine hydrochloric acid is also a natural and extremely effective acid supplement that works within minutes of taking it. Most people with low acid, in fact, or hypochlorhydria, they need to take between 5 and 7 capsules per meal, all the way up to 10. And that might sound like a lot, but if you were to open up those capsules and pour all the contents onto a tablespoon, you would end up with about 1 tablespoon of acid, which is perfect for digesting a meal. I mean, your body creates tablespoons worth, almost a cup of acid just to digest a big meal, right? Think about that. So it's not a magic pill. It's not going to cause a chain chemical reaction. It's just a simple ingredient of acid that you're adding to your body. So you need a lot of it to digest your food. So betaine hydrochloride is extremely powerful. It must be taken during or right after a meal so that it can begin breaking down the food right away and not work against your empty stomach. Yeah, you can take theoretically as much as you want, but it's just going to be far too inconvenient and bothersome to take any more than 10 per meal. And you have a serious problem if you need to do that. I would try to manage your health so that you don't need that much, at the very least, if you can. So then that's what people with achlorhydria have. There's almost no production of acid. They could easily take 15 capsules for one meal, but that is extremely inconvenient and difficult. So it's always better to treat the cause of your acid reflux rather than the symptoms alone. In addition to the insight I received about canned drinks and food, I was also told to drink Diet Coke to help with my bothersome post-meal burps. Diet Coke, of all things. But when I looked up Coke and colas online, I learned that it's pretty much the only pop that contains phosphoric acid. Then it made sense to me. Okay, there's an ingredient here that no other types of pops or sodas have. So I've been drinking that after meals, and it helps a little bit. If I drink half a cup or so, then it kind of tones down the symptoms. So I'm not a big Coke drinker. It was just recently when I learned that Coca-Cola also has their gold label Diet Coke brand, which doesn't have sugar or caffeine. So this is a great option for me because, once you start downing those colas, it becomes easy to reach the caffeine levels of a whole cup of coffee or so, and that becomes detrimental especially for people who've been drinking too much for most of their life. You shouldn't be having more than a couple cups of coffee, a couple 100 milligrams. That's really maximum per day. Any more than that, you're at risk for diabetes and things, adrenal fatigue and stuff like that.